Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and welcome to America's Mayor Live. And here we are in the week between Christmas and New Year's. Always a special week for everyone. Hopefully, you're doing a certain amount of relaxing still and enjoying the holiday. Today, we lost the oldest living president, I think the oldest living president of all time. I don't think any president lived to 100 years old. Jimmy Carter did, and Jimmy Carter is a somewhat of a mixed picture, except as a human being, a very, very fine man. I knew Jimmy Carter, not well, but I knew him. Spent some time with him. Helped him with his home building in New York when I was mayor. In fact, he built one. He built one timed to be built. Should I run against Hillary Clinton? Need I say more? And I spent some time with him, got to know him. I have great respect for him as a good man, a Christian, a decent human being. I did think he was a very bad president, and I don't agree with the people who say he was a great ex-president. I think he was a terrible ex-president who hurt the United States immensely, particularly with regard to the Middle East, in his embracing of terrorists and his attacks on Israel. I think that some of the thinking of these people that run around protesting in favor of Hamas and this nonsense about a two-state solution, which would embrace a terrorist state, his failure to recognize that Palestine was a terrorist state, his failure to do anything about Hamas. He didn't even make moral equivalence out of Israel and Palestine. He made Palestine morally superior to the state of Israel. His work on homes it was a very fine thing to do. I mean, wonderful personal charity. But in terms of international affairs, Bill Clinton, of course, despised him. Bill Clinton despised him for an early difficulty, but even more importantly, for his interference in North Korea, which Clinton claims really led to North Korea being able to move forward with their nuclear program. He's what happens if you're a good man and you're very naive. And maybe you think you're smarter than you are, because he made some very, very foolish decisions. He had a few successes. The peace treaty between Egypt and Israel was a monumental success. That was a great thing that he did. Would it have been possible without him? I don't know. Would we have won the would we have won the war without Grant or Lincoln, or who knows? He was there. He got it done the way Trump got the Abraham Accords done. Nobody else was able to do it. He was. It was the first step. But the rest of his approach to the Middle East was extremely biased, extremely unfair, and extremely dangerous to the United States and to the state of Israel. I do think it is said in jest that he's very fortunate that Biden came along, because he's now not the worst president of the last 100 years. Is probably true. And I would also put Obama. I mean, I kind of figured, I counted him out as the worst president after about 2 years of Obama, because he was loyal. Jimmy Carter was a loyal American, loved America, just had the wrong ideas. Right at the very, very beginning of his administration, he gave a speech at Notre Dame, and really was the first American president up to that point that really totally misunderstood the Cold War and Russian communism. it was an extraordinary statement. And I would say it's a statement that, much like Biden's failures in Afghanistan, which provoked and allowed Putin to feel comfortable invading Afghanistan, this particular statement at Notre Dame went a very, very long way to encourage the Soviet communists to go into Afghanistan, figuring he would do nothing about it, which he didn't. He didn't do anything about it. It was in 1977, right in office, and he shocked the American people. It was like when he said that America had an inordinate fear of communism. Well, of course, communism was dedicated to destroying the United States of America. And exactly what he meant by that, who the hell knows? If you listen to the rest of the speech, it's hard to figure out what the hell he meant by it also. But if you're a Soviet and you're watching that, you'd say to yourself, well, here's a weakling who came after Ford and Nixon and Johnson and Kennedy, who never would have tolerated the Soviet Union pushing him around. I mean, Kennedy almost went to nuclear war over it. He was a Democrat. But this was a different view. Inordinate fear of communism. And then other things indicating that he was an accommodator, an appeaser. Was only in the last year of his administration, when he was trying to get reelected, that he tried to raise military spending, which he had cut rather dramatically in the first couple of years while we're in the middle of a brutal Cold War. He worked out our relationships with China. In retrospect, he, of course, is not the only one that can be blamed by being fooled by China, but he was fooled probably more than most by China. And then, of course, the great failures of his administration was the stagflation, the inflation, which was just about every single economic harm, including inflation. Oh, gosh, it was like 16, 17%. And, of course, you remember even if you weren't alive, you've seen pictures of the cars around the block trying to get oil. And when he gave his Malay speech, he said he was going to make us energy independent. And of course, he did nothing of the kind. We become energy independent until Trump in 2018. His handling of the economy was nothing short of imbecilic. Worse than Biden? Maybe not. Maybe not. We knew less about our economy then, frankly. We were still taken up with Keynes, and we hadn't had the benefit of a Reagan revolution to revamp the way we looked at our economy. Biden had the benefit of that and still ruined us. So in many respects, Biden was a much worse. He was also, as far as I can tell, a thoroughly honest man. There was no hint of taking money from China or taking money from Russia or taking money from anybody. He had a brother that was kind of a harmless, jerky guy who was probably going around trying to make a living for himself. But compared to the Bidens, it was chicken feed and nothing. And there's no indication, like there is with Biden, where there are thousands of records and a statement by his son saying that he gave half of his income to his father for 30 years. Nothing like that with him. So it's a complex picture. I think the thing that really ruined his presidency completely was the hostage crisis. First, that statement about we shouldn't have an inordinate fear of communism was only part of pretty much a kind of Biden approach, which is we're not going to go to war at all, and we're appeased. We'll do anything, whatever you want. We'll go along with it. He made the crucial mistake of thinking that he could work things out with the new regime in Iran, and did not support the restoration of the Shah, and ended up with the biggest problem that we've had since he left office. Probably no group has murdered more Americans than the regime that he helped put in power in Iran. And he helped put them in power. And when he did, he took no action to stop them at an early stage. One thought he might do that, but he didn't have the courage or the strength or the strength of character to do it. And then got humiliated completely by the taking of the hostages. 66 American hostages were taken in 1979. They were held for 444 days. They were humiliated. America was humiliated. America's nose was pushed in the dirt, and all he did was look sad. He did it to his credit, which Biden never did. He attempted a rescue, but it was a massive failure. Sometimes he said he should have sent 2 helicopters. I don't know if he sent 2, if they would have worked either. It seemed like nothing worked for him, largely because he was incompetent. The job was way over his head, like Biden. He was not demented like Biden, but he had extraordinarily silly ideas. And he was a persistent critic of Israel. When he ran for office, he wasn't just defeated by Reagan. Reagan basically destroyed him. He got only 41% of the vote. I don't know how many states he got, like 4 or 6. And Reagan was from out of nowhere, really. Except, he exuded a confident, strong love of America and peace through strength. And I think the biggest thing that could it be that one thing, the Malay speech in 1979 destroyed him? No. Everything I mentioned, and I've left out a few, destroyed him. But I'm going to play a little of that for you, if you can get it, Ted. I don't know. I think you're also if you take a look at the expression on his face, this is an America. This is an America that is very, very down on itself. We've been, kicked in the head. Long lines. The economy is terrible. People are out of work. He doesn't seem to understand the economy or been able to explain it. And then he gets on, and he looks like he needs therapy.
With unlimited economic power and military might, threat inherited in business, in ordinary way, it is a crisis of confidence. The crisis has struck at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. We can see this crisis in the growing doubt about the meaning of our own lives and in the loss of a unity of purpose for our nation. The erosion of our confidence in the future is threatening to destroy the social and the political fabric of America. The confidence that we have always had as a people is not simply some romantic dream or a proverb in a dusty book that we read just on the 4th of July. It is the idea which founded our nation and has guided our development as a people, confident.
Here's the problem with that, and it goes on in that vein as we move on. the American people did not have confidence in him. This speech told them what the problem was. And he's the embodiment of the problem and no solution. This is how America lacks confidence. We're not what we used to be, but we can be, with no explanation of how we go from where we are to where we're supposed to be. That's a leader lays out a plan that you then follow, like a general, right? The general maps out how you're going to take the hill, and he shows you the steps along the way, and then he gives you confidence. That, among other things, because you buy into the plan, gives you confidence. Now, I'm not going to play the whole speech for it because really it's horribly boring, among other things, and you'll just turn it off. He had the capacity to bore the hell out of people, which was another problem that certain politicians had. He became president based on a fluke. He was a peanut farmer who went to the Naval Academy. He was a good student at the Naval Academy. Don't know that he commanded a submarine, but he served on a submarine. He worked with Admiral Rickover, who he admired greatly. He certainly was an intelligent man. This is not a bozo like Biden. He was a very religious man and a very idealistic man, and had very little common sense. You just have to say that, very little common sense. To think that, we're going to restore confidence by telling a country that doesn't have confidence that it doesn't have confidence. It's kind of naive, right? What are you gonna do? What are the steps you're gonna take? So then when he left, although a lot of people give him great credit for his post-presidency, I find what he did with regard to humanitarian work very admirable and helped him with it. But I find what he did to my country horrible. I mean, he was the president working for the other side. Here he was at every turn supporting the terrorists and not Israel. I don't know what he had against Israel. I don't know. I'm not going to accuse him of anything, but he definitely, even during the presidency, remember, Ronald Reagan might have gotten a bigger percentage of the Jewish vote than Trump did. Certainly the first time around. Because, and for example, the mayor of New York at the time, Edward Koch, who was a Democratic congressman and really a kind of, at one point, a very liberal Democrat, wouldn't support him because of his double crossing of Israel. And he considered him an enemy of Israel. People kind of forget it, and then he carried that on into his post presidency, which a lot of Democrats like to forget about the damage that he's done to us and making it difficult to get a solution in Israel, because he has raised greatly the expectation of the terrorists. So Jimmy Carter, complex man, president who got elected because of Watergate. Exactly why other Democrats of more experience and stature didn't come along and run at that time. I really would have to go back in history and kind of remember who was there. His vice president, Mondale, of course, ran in '84, and Reagan beat him by even more. And then again, Reagan might have been able to beat anyone. I mean, he was an incredibly gifted candidate as well as an extraordinary president, but he had both. So let's pray for Jimmy Carter's soul. Gosh, if he needs prayers, we need a lot. He was legitimately a very religious man. This was not, Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi, or one of those characters, who says they're very, very good Catholics and then enthusiastically supports the killing of 6, 7, 8, and 9-month-old babies. I've forgotten what his position was on birth control. Not birth control, on abortion. It was pretty tough. Maybe the first couple months, maybe. But I don't think he could have been against it and gotten nominated even then in the Democratic Party, but whatever. So I think it is very exciting that Donald J. Trump is laying out in these days, as he's getting ready to run to become president, a possible expansion for the United States. And I think the one that excites me the most, believe it or not, is Greenland, which would be a very logical acquisition for us. So I don't know if you know this, but the United States has a treaty that goes back to 1951, the Greenland Treaty, good name for it. And in that treaty, we have certain responsibilities and obligations for the defense of Greenland, even if we're not invited. Because even back then, there was a recognition that it is a big step that could be very useful, well, particularly back then to the Soviets. And it was going to be occupied in the Second World War. Denmark was not able to defend it. Do you know we occupied it during the Second World War? We occupied it from 41 to 45. The United States did. So it is not a, about Trump is, whenever he says something, they make it always sound so foolish. And then it turns out to be actually quite intelligent and has quite a bit of history to it. And many times in our history, we have thought that it would be in our national interest to have Greenland attached to us, and particularly since the Second World War, to the point where we defended them. The people of Greenland, only 56,000, by the way, 56,000 people, and the Kingdom of Denmark didn't have the troops to defend it against the Germans, and they wouldn't have the troops to defend it against the Russians or the Chinese. And if it should be captured by either, it would be an unbelievable launching pad both ways to attack Europe, attack America. So as the Robert O'Brien, the former national security advisor, said, Greenland is a highway from the Arctic all the way to North America to the United States, or if you want to go in the other direction, to Europe. But we recognized that during the Second World War, which is why I don't know if we forced it or Denmark invited us or we just agreed, but we occupied it until 45, 46, and have a base there now. I mean, it's not as if, since there are 56,000 citizens of Greenland, our base must make up at least a percentage of the population. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back, and we'll show it to you on a map, and then we'll take a look at just a quick look at some of the other acquisitions that he has in mind, because every single one of them has a strategic importance, either as an acquisition or in order to generate activity that somebody like Biden would have been impossible to even have thought of. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order...
Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani. This is America's Mayor Live. And as you know, I love maps. And I thought you'd get an idea of what I mean by that's a map that sort of tries to account for the fact that the earth is round. Thank you, Columbus. And then you'll get an idea of how close Greenland really is. Virtually, it abuts Canada, the northern part of Canada. And you see Greenland, Denmark under it, of course, is the country that it's kind of like the connection between Canada and the UK. It's an independent country, and it can make its own decision. The 56,000 people of Greenland could literally vote and become part of the United States. There's no need to negotiate with Denmark. And the United States could offer a $250,000 payment to every citizen, and would cost $14 billion if we did that. Or if you'd like to make it $500,000, it'll cost you $28 billion. Sounds pretty good for an acquisition that's, I think, bigger than the Louisiana Purchase, huh? Could be a lot of oil and gas there too, you know. And Denmark is all upset about it, and the politician in charge is all upset about it. I haven't heard about the 56,000 people, though. A lot of them being interviewed. I think it might be kind of cool being part of the United States. We are a pretty popular country. I mean, Denmark did not get 12 million people to 15 million that came there in the last 3.5 years, or Greenland. But you see, it's right next to the Arctic Circle, right? There's the Arctic Circle. And there's Russia. So you can see how it would be a very, very important staging point if one of them were able to get control of that, Russia or China. So not a bad idea to protect us and to protect Canada if we had control of that. Now the others, so I would say this is going to result either in our getting it as some form of annexation to the United States, or a much closer relationship in terms of being in control of its defense. We would be willing to put a lot more troops there. Well, then if Denmark paid for it, if they want to keep it. So it'd be an interesting negotiation, just right up Trump's alley. Mexico, of course, is not a negotiation about taking Mexico, but he talked about the 25% tariff. Mexico is working night and day to stop people from coming over the border. And all President Sheinbaum talks about is how she's doing that. Same thing with Silly Boy up in Canada. How effective he is, I don't know, but he's working real hard, sweating a ton, getting all upset. There actually are sources that say a couple of times he was seen crying, but I don't know if that's true. But he's vowed he's going to cut them off, and it's remarkable how much these people don't understand. You got to have leverage in a deal. You have to have leverage. Biden never had leverage. Don't invade Ukraine. Why? Why shouldn't I invade Ukraine? Well, I'm not going to put any boots on the ground. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. Would you like to say that again? I don't put any boots on the ground. Say it again. He said it about 50 times, and Putin said, gee, now exactly why shouldn't I invade Ukraine? Because I'm a good guy? So Trump, 25% tariff on Canada that sends 60% of its oil to the United States. Oh, by the way, we could replace that 60% domestically with drill, baby, drill. Not going to be hard. In fact, we might. If they're not nice to us, they're going to be hurt by that a lot more than we are. Same thing with Mexico. Where Mexico's market? Mexico doesn't have any money. South America doesn't have any money. Europe is far away. If we stop buying from Mexico, or we put a very high tariffs on Mexico, their already shaky economy just goes bye-bye. Bye-bye, bye-bye. I don't think most Americans wouldn't. And it's amazing to me that most American politicians don't understand the absolute awesome power of the American economy, even when it's weak. There's nothing close to it. If America were to go into a depression, China would disappear. China would be hurt much more than we would. Just think of all the American assets they have. They don't have their own assets, really. Well, that's why you elected him, and that's why he's going to do a really, really good job, because he himself is a very gifted negotiator and businessman, and he's got a couple with him that are just as good or almost as good. So the attack on the Azerbaijan airplane by Russia, that is creating, talking about airplanes, huh? That's avoiding going over the home of the next president of the United States. That's why you're hearing it. When he goes off to Washington and comes back only for weekends here and there, we won't hear those planes as much. I don't think. I mean, I actually have never understood that. If you're not going to, whether he's there or not there, why would you? It also gives like a signal of whether he's there or not there. I just think you should, even though my neighbors, shh, don't tell my neighbors. I think they should keep that route all the time, so it's not a signal, or most of the time. But that's just me playing my old job, which is security. So you know about the crash, of course. A plane that was going from. Let's see if we get the exact spot here.
Playing a video of it right now.
Okay. Then, of course, I'll show them a map. Well, a plane that was headed to Russia from Azerbaijan, carrying mostly, I think, citizens of Azerbaijan, was knocked off course because of Russian drone activity. Now, it was knocked way off course, if you want to take a look at it. And then it was shot down. I'm not sure the Russians have as yet really acknowledged it. Putin called the president of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is sort of under their thumb, or at least it was. He called President Ilham Aliyev, yes, and Aliyev demanded that Russia take responsibility for it. Apparently, Putin apologized for what happened in Russian airspace, but he stopped short of taking responsibility and offering to compensate and to pay for it and to take responsibility for it. It was a vague apology issued by President Vladimir Putin. And the airliner was traveling from Baku, Azerbaijan, to Grozny in southern Russia on Wednesday. And it encountered interference with its navigation system. And the plane crashed in Kazakhstan, which is way off course. So if you want to look at the map now, you'll see number one. It took off from Baku. You see the red line there. But then, instead of taking the intended path, that semicircle, right, which would take you right to Grozny, Russia, it went off course all the way over to Kazakhstan, right next to the Caspian Sea, where you see the strike. And that's where the plane went down. And it was probably accidentally, but definitely shot down by a missile from a Russian air defense system. It was an Embraer 190 aircraft, and it had been diverted. And this excuse that the Russians originally said a flock of birds, set it off course, not the drones. So this is very interesting to see that the relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia are described as in tatters, particularly with Turkey's increasing relationship with Azerbaijan. Now, that's not good news for Armenia, because Azerbaijan is carrying out a partial genocide in the eastern part of Armenia. Remember, about 2 years ago, they killed enormous numbers of Armenians and led to the building of a border wall. And so whether this means that Azerbaijan is associated with one maniac or another, it sounds like they're going to be associated with a maniac no matter what, because I consider Erdogan a completely irresponsible world leader and a murderer. Maybe not quite Putin, but maybe because he doesn't have the resources to be. And there is, from point of view of the White House, there doesn't seem to be any doubt that this was caused by a Russian air defense system. And I think that's also true of NATO, and I think it's true of Azerbaijan, and it'll be true of everyone but Putin, which is not going to help him. It is not conceivable that this plane was shot down on purpose. There'd be no reason in the world why Russia would shoot down a civil airline carrying people from Azerbaijan who are an ally. They may have some friction, but it isn't at that level. So this was obviously a terrible mistake. But this is such a dishonest, immoral country under Putin that they won't even tell the truth about that because it shows weakness, I guess, or it shows some degree of negligence or not being able to control your drones and your aircraft or whatever. On the other hand, they as they're losing some degree of control of Azerbaijan, they seem to be getting more control of Georgia, which is in the southern part of Russia. Whenever I say Georgia, people think I'm talking about the state of Georgia. But their candidate, Mikhail Kavelashvili, most you might notice that most Georgians' name ends in Shvili. Very interesting. We'll have to find out why. But I would say half the people I've come across from Georgia end up with that Vili ending in the name. Kavelashvili, Mikhail Kavelashvili, who was a famous soccer player, ran and won. But it was like a Democrat election for a Supreme Court judge in New York. He had no opponent. Yep. They're just as dictatorial as we are in New York. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll be right back after a short break. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Alive with our nice Christmas tree behind us and our Christmas decorations. Still Christmas season. We're awaiting the arrival of the three kings, right? January 6th. So, do we have our guest?
We do.
Well, we have as a guest a very, very interesting person and a friend of our show, Allison Huynh, a former Democrat fundraiser and a billionaire tech investor who's also a senior research fellow at Stanford. And we're very, very fortunate to have her tonight with this debate going on about the visas, about the H-1B program, which is broken out into a minor little civil war in the Republican Party. So, Allison, we would love to get your perspective on it.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening,
Glad
Allison.
to be here.
How are you? Well, very
Really
nice to have you.
good.
So tell us what you think of the H-1B program. Is it a program we should keep? Should we expand it, reduce it, get rid of it? What do you think?
I think we really need to re-examine it. It's been a loophole, much like open borders, these open cities, sanctuary cities. It's basically a loophole in the law. When I was going to Stanford back in the 90s with the founders of Google and many of these big tech founders and entrepreneurs, they're very well known now, but back then we were Americans, and when we started out, we hired American workers only when they became really big did they start to do some of these evil things. But in the very beginning, it was do no evil, right? And so once they became really big, they hired these lawyers and they brought in workers that were very inexpensive. But we really need to have a very nuanced conversation about this. I know that Mr. Musk and Mr. Ramaswamy is very pro H1 HB1 visa. I think we need to examine it. I know they're talking about we need to get geniuses into our country, but I haven't heard of that's the OB1 visa, I believe, or O1B visa, which is the extraordinary visa, which you bring in the geniuses, and that's fast tracked. And I think that's what Mr. Musk is referring to. But the H1B, to me, it seems like there's a loophole and you can really bring a lot of people in. So I think there's some conflation when we have this discussion between the HB1 visa and the O1B visa, which is the genius visa.
Right, right. Now, in your experience, I mean, has it, I mean, theoretically, it's supposed to be used because this is extraordinary talent and we don't have it in the United States. Is it really just getting us to not take a look at the talent we have in the United States?
So we have amazing talent in the United States, and we have amazing talent around the world too. I can only speak about my personal experience. I'm not a policy expert. So when we were doing our robotics AI incubator, Willow Garage, which we ended up, spinning out and selling 4 companies to Google, we had hundreds of employees over the time, and maybe we did two or three of those visas, if I can recall. I mean, that was like in 2000 and late. And and then I wrote some patents with NVIDIA, 4 patents actually, with this brilliant genius from Bulgaria. You can look it up on the USPTO website. And from what I know, there's about like 10 really extraordinary engineers from NVIDIA, 10 to 20 geniuses that I've met personally at Google. But for the most part, I do think the O1B visa, the genius visa, is very helpful to our country, but we don't really admit too many of those. I think the debate right now is over the HB1 visa and the loophole where we bring in a lot of people for and undercut the average wage of the American workers.
Well, that's very interesting. It's a very interesting way to look at it. It's very confusing because there really are like 3 programs. There's an upper level program for, as you say, exceptional, world-class geniuses. There's the H-1B visa program, which are supposed to be for skilled people. And then there's the 2B program, which are for regular workers, where you can't fill that need in the United States. For example, farm workers sometimes, or restaurant workers. And all of them are easily subject to abuse. If somebody's going to think, oh gosh, we can save money. So it seems to me they're going to have to be paid, at the same level. So there's no
many of them are not. And there's also an extension of the student visa, which if you come here as a college university student, then you have a work permit for 3 years. And many times companies pay those recent graduates a lot less than their American counterparts. So there are, it's a very nuanced conversation, Mayor, right? And so it can be confusing. And then there's also the debate about the culture. American culture, is it mediocre? What is it about American culture that we need to reform in addition to the actual HB1 visa as well? So It's great that you
It's
bring
gonna
it
be,
to
and
light.
it's worth having the conversation.
Mhm.
All it'll do, hopefully, I think everyone here has the same objective, maybe just different ways of getting there. So I think this can be helpful in the long run. Ted, you wanted to ask a question?
Allison, I have one question for you. What are your thoughts on high school football and prom?
Well, I'm an immigrant to this country. I'm a U.S. citizen. I love prom. I'm a dancer. Most people know me socially. I love to dance, and I love sports. I think it's very important. I actually grew up in South Central Texas. I went to this big football school, Converse, Texas, and every other year when you go to my high school now, I go back. It's like every other year they have the championship plaque, and they played against a school called Odessa Permian, and their rivalry was featured in this TV show called Friday Night Lights. It was just yeah, so it's just something that we did, and when we played sports in high school, and it started out in middle school, we would travel with the league. I did tennis. I did competitive tennis with my tennis team. And it really taught me this, competitive nature, also to be very self-sufficient, to be resilient as we're traveling all around Texas, starting at the age of 10, 11 years old, sleeping away from home, building camaraderie, teamwork. I think this is very important to the innovation, to the culture of excellence in America. So in America, we may not have the best math score, we may not have the best reading score, and in fact, Vivek Ramaswamy is correct. We're lowest in all those scores in the developing country. But what we have that really makes America really unique, the special recipe, the secret sauce, is that we are very hardworking and we're resilient. We take risk. And I do believe these extracurricular activities that we have in the US, and I know they don't have that in Europe, right? They don't have sports attached to the schools in Europe, and they definitely don't have that in Asia as well. So Germany, India, China, yes, they have higher test scores than we do, but yet somehow in the last 150 years, we've done the transcontinental railroad. We've developed aviation, the Wright brothers. We developed the internet backbone, the personal computer, social media. And now as we go into the golden age of AI, these are American companies, right? That is pushing AI and quantum forward. So, we're doing something right, but we need to have a nuanced conversation about the visas. It's not just the HB1 visa. It's it's the student visa that is converted to the work permit. It's the O1B visa as well, and the farm worker permits that are subject to abuse. So, I mean, just like the open border debate, now we have this open visa debate. Let's have some productive conversations. What are some ideas that we can have to reform our system? It's democracy, it's very messy, but I'm glad to have this conversation with you, Mayor, and everyone else on the internet and on X. I mean, in the previous administration, they would use lawfare to shut us down. They would do a fake website, right, to shut us up, or they sue you, and they take everything away from you, which you know very well, Mayor. And so I'm really happy in this administration. I don't think there's a big divide with MAGA. I think MAGA is a big tent, and it includes, it's very inclusive of everyone.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think we want as many people that can help make America great. I mean, that's the whole idea of it. And we want to start with our own people, but we want to build. So I really thank you very, very much, Wynn, for those very cogent remarks. And Happy New Year.
Happy
God
New
bless
Year's,
you.
Mayor.
And real quick, Allison, how can people follow you on social media? Where can they follow you to learn more about what you're doing?
on X at Allie Huynh, ALLIHUYNH.
Do you like to be called Allie or Allison?
Well, Allie's my high school, college nickname. So, but either or, please, Mayor, call me Allie.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Allie. And we'll be right back after this message.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live. I do think that was a very, very interesting and very important conversation. I have a view about immigration, legal immigration. Totally doesn't apply to illegal. That it makes us better. It challenges us. Even this discussion is challenging us, isn't it? Ramaswamy and Musk have put us on the defensive. Maybe not the most artful way possible. Maybe a little bit crude with getting Ted all upset about football and proms and stuff like that. But what Allison mentioned about the test scores is a matter of concern. And she's right. It's not the full measure of American education. And I believe that sports and arts are as important a part of education as the typical and classical subjects. Problem is we don't teach the typical and classical subjects anymore, nor do we teach arts, nor do we have many sports programs. Because of the teachers union, we have a seriously decaying educational problem, which is being taken up by the private schools, the charter schools, the homeschooling, the parochial schools, and the alternatives. But where you got the Communist Teachers Union involved, you're basically teaching communism, questioning gender, questioning America, questioning any kind of structure of morality. So it's a much, much bigger discussion. I think Allison made another point that's very important when you compare America to other countries. Because of our classical education that we've had for so long, of which some is still left in America, even if our test scores aren't as good, we're without any doubt the most creative nation in the world. You look at what China is, and China has to steal everything from us. The Chinese may be extraordinarily smart and very well educated, but structured. And that's why they have such a hard time innovating and why they have to steal it. Our education, which from the very beginning makes you question, and sports helps you do that. The arts help you do that. It creates probably the most creative group of people that ever existed in terms of, in a very short period of time, inventing more new things than any group of humans ever did. So there's something really right about us that we got to maintain. There's something we got to fix. And there's also something right about our immigration when it works correctly. I think it's had a lot to do with challenging us and making us better. But it has now been so bastardized by the insane things done by the Biden administration that it's going to take a lot. So you should understand the H-1B program is limited to 85,000 people a year. of which I think about 60,000 or so came in last year. So important positions if used right. But when you consider that, 2 or 3 million illegals came in, this is chump change, right? It's a shame that it is, but it does allow us to discuss many of the things that have to be discussed, because the two most important things that we have to straighten out in this country. Well, the first most important thing is got to bring God back into America if we want to be a moral country again. Whether you believe in God or not, you should be in favor of bringing God back. Nothing works like God to create a moral society. But in any event, the two other things that are enormously important are the parents and their role in educating children, and education turning around so the decisions are made by the parents and not the government communist apparatchiks. In Minnesota with Tampon Tim, the children are the property of the state. Terry McAuliffe, basically, in Virginia said that. That's what the Democrats believe. So did Karl Marx. What we've always believed is that they are guided by the people who love them most, their parents. And we want to keep it that way. But we got to fight to do that. And the second thing we have to do, in addition to straightening out education and stopping it from being a complete propaganda machine, to straighten out the methods of communication, the media, which brainwashes and diminishes a lot of our citizens to becoming automatons. So these are the things that are going to be hard to do, but they have to be done. So, as I pointed out before, Trump's positions that he's taken already have shown us some results. In Mexico, the new president cracks down on organized crime to blunt Trump threats. Like he's not even president yet. With Trump threatening the use of American military against the cartels who are killing Americans with fentanyl, they are increasing dramatically their pursuit of the cartels and are making all kinds of offers already, offering joint operations like we did very successfully. I was part of that in Colombia. And here in this Wall Street Journal article, it says, and I assume it's correct, some polls say a majority of Mexicans would approve having U.S. agents or even soldiers in Mexico if their presence meant an end to cartel violence. So, Madam President, maybe Trump is saying something your people like. And maybe you don't want us to come in on our own, but maybe joint operations wouldn't be a bad idea. Certainly should give it some thought. Sounds like your people might like it. The other plane crash, the one that was on the ground with a Boeing, again, 737-800, operated by Jeju Air in South Korea. That's another one and this is another one that they claim is attributable to birds. These birds are really. This was another terrible crash on the ground, but and again another strike against Boeing. I don't know how many people, I think, well, the two members of the crew survived. No, I mean, it's terrible.
You watch it hit a concrete barrier.
Oh my. Ugh.
So we're playing the video right now of the crash. We're playing video right now of the crash in South Korea. 179 dead, 2 survivors. As you can see, the plane appears to hit a concrete barrier. A concrete barrier at the end of the runway. A lot of people are questioning the positioning of that barrier and the necessity of it. As you can see, the plane lands. The landing gear did not deploy. So this plane is landing on its belly, skids across the runway. And at that point, the pilot basically has lost all control of the aircraft without the landing gear down. And it slams off the runway right into a concrete block that is actually holding the airport's it's specific radar equipment that actually does need to be positioned. I think it's called a localizer, and it's positioned. It has to be positioned at the end of the runway. But usually these localizers are placed on kind of collapsible poling, right, or structures. So in a case like this, something like this happens, it should just go right through it and continue. In this case, for some reason, this airport had a straight up concrete wall right past the runway, and a lot of people,
Well,
experts, are questioning that.
You and I've got to go take a look. Take a little ride over to Palm Beach Airport and see in Fort Lauderdale.
Ah, yes. We can compare. I bet you they don't have
We
those.
pass it every time we go to the Trump golf course.
Yeah. Here's a better view.
Yeah,
Look at that, right into the wall.
So had that been just an empty field out there,
It would have skidded to a stop.
well, it would have been injuries and but it wouldn't have been an explosion. I don't think.
And everybody's dead except for 2.
Yeah, it does seem awful for an accident that occurred on the ground.
Right.
Usually you don't see everybody dead on an accident that occurs on the ground.
Right. This thing, look at that, right off the runway, no landing gear. This thing is skidding across the runway. I'm guessing the reverse thrusters maybe weren't working. And right into the wall. Just a very, very sad situation. We'll watch it one more time. It really is just awful. Look at that. There's a concrete wall, and it smashes right into the wall at 150 miles an hour.
Yeah, I know it's a Boeing, but I don't know that it wouldn't have happened. That couldn't have happened to any other plane. Doesn't seem like there's anything functionally affecting the Boeing, but Boeing has become a bad name now, which is really a shame for them. My good friend, and he is a good friend for many years, Bibi Netanyahu underwent prostate cancer surgery. He had his prostate removed over the holidays, and he is convalescing now. And he's going to remain in the hospital for several days of observation. The operation went really well. The malignancy or cancer, if there was any, was removed completely. And having had that same thing, now 23 years ago, I'm sure Bibi will come through it just fine. And actually, at his age, it's even less of a problem than it would have been when I had it. I was about in my 50s, I think. And he's 75. To me, a hero. What he's done in the last year is equivalent to the Trump-Abraham Accords. You're like, you think about it, right? Before October 6th of 2023, there were, there were Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and Assad in Syria, all acolytes and pawns of the reign of terror, Iran. Hamas, pretty close to gone. Hezbollah leadership decimated. Goodbye, Assad. And now the Israelis are beating the living daylights out of the Houthis. Finally, somebody is in Yemen. Now, we should be, because they've done a heck of a job on us. But obviously, until we get Trump there, we are probably well known around the world as the cowardly lion, otherwise known as Joe Biden. Among other things, wow, I mean, Israel is doing a job on the Houthis south of Saudi Arabia. They're not forgetting about Hamas. The other day, they attacked in northern Hamas, and they attacked a hospital. Oh, those bad Israelis. They attacked a hospital. Except the hospital, they arrested more than 240 people at the hospital who were Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists. It was being used as a shelter for terrorists. And one of the major leaders there is Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, who is a guy who constantly criticizes Israel and puts out phony estimates of people dead, things that happen. And it was described by the IDF as the last remaining bastion in Jabalia. Now, Jabalia is, if you want to look at the map, Jabalia is in northern, right up there. Can they see it, Ted? Jabalia is right up there. So that's the border over here. That's the border with Lebanon and with Israel. And here, this is the area of Israel that they attacked. This is the midpoint in Gaza. And this is the area that they were fighting over. Khan Yunis, and then, of course, Rafah was the main one that Cackling Kamala said if the Israelis took that, there'd be 100,000 people dead. I think it was more like 8,000. And Hamas has been wiped out in southern Gaza, which makes it that much more difficult for them to be able to bring in weapons from Egypt when they are smuggled in from Egypt. And as you know, the UN relief agency is basically just a subsidiary of Hamas. A number of their UN workers fought with the terrorists, actually killed people, civilians, on October the 7th, and have been supplying Hamas for decades and stealing money. So Hussam Abu Safia is now missing, probably being questioned. This whole attack, which resulted in 240 terrorists being arrested, also resulted in 50 people being killed. Of course, they will say that it was only seven. Is it seven? Are they saying? I think so. Who were terrorists? But of course, that assumes that the terrorists are telling the truth, which is a very bad assumption to make. The attack was carried out carefully and in complete accordance with international law, since it was overwhelmingly occupied by terrorists who were conducting attacks on Israel. And Safia is in the custody of the IDF, but nobody knows where. Imagine he's having a very good time talking to the Mossad. Syria is still a big, big question. Mohammed al-Jalani, which is his nom de guerre, is in charge and is promising, of course, that they're going to be good boys. They're no longer going to be terrorists. He broke with al-Qaeda, he said, about 5 or 6 years ago. Problem is, he may have broken with al-Qaeda, but he hasn't broken with destroying the state of Israel, killing Christians, and wanting to have an Islamic empire. Nowhere did he renounce his oath of loyalty to Zawahiri, who was his boss. And when last analyzed, the United States government thought that the whole thing was a hoax. The State Department actually took his new group, which he formed, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and which is just a continuation of the al-Nusra Front, which is a long-term terrorist group, and designated them a terrorist group just recently. But now, of course, the Biden administration, who seems to be on the side of the Islamic terrorists. I mean, they give money to Iran, who gives money to the terrorists. So they actually have flooded a lot more money into Iran than Israel. But they're looking for ways to lift the terrorist designation on this murderer. And I mean, I would trust the Trump people to take a good look at this guy and not make a foolish decision about him. I would trust the Biden people to absolutely make a foolish decision about him, because that's all they do with regard to Islamic terrorists. So far, he has shown nothing concrete that he's any different. And he's asking he's going to need more time in order to show that. So meanwhile, without any demonstration of his goodwill or that it's real, the Biden administration has canceled the $10 million bounty on him as a murderer. It's pretty good. All you have to do is to say, I'm not a terrorist anymore. No more bounty. You can still be in favor of destroying all the Jews, but you just say, I'm not a terrorist. And Biden will lift the $10 million bounty. At least that is as bad as what he does with the Ayatollah, which is give him money so he can kill people. Now, Trump is going to inherit an Iran that is in the worst shape it's been in, actually, since he left office. Because the day Biden came in, he started pumping money in, well over $100 billion, and they have become quite a power, right? Or they appear to have become quite a power with the proxy groups that I told you about, causing trouble all over the place. Now this winter, there have been gas shortages. There have been millions of Iranians without heat. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard has called it disgraceful. And that is before Trump comes in and imposes really severe sanctions. So we should see the protests again, like we had in 2019 when Trump was in office. The real, whose purchasing power is down to the lowest point it's been at. 801 reals to $1 American. Hamas's leadership, gone. Hezbollah, big portion, gone. Assad, hanging out with Putin. The Houthis fighting for their lives. And the Islamic Republic lost a lot of its long-range air defenses with Israel's retaliatory attack. So I think if on day one Trump begins the maximum pressure policy, there's a chance that we could have some amazing changes in Iran. And you want peace in the Middle East, you got to get rid of the reign of terror. Not going to happen. Without it, it was the major failing of Jimmy Carter. And it's one of the things that he left us that has been a curse for us. He left us with the Ayatollah, the reign of terror, and having it empowered And then we had American regime after American regime that wanted to practice appeasement with people who are dead set toward murdering us. Somehow, these people never read the history of the Second World War. What led up to it? Back in my old home of New York, it's very, very sad to say that more police officers were injured in the first 9 months of this year than at any time during this period of time. 4,600. The highest in the past was 4,077, which was last year. And then before that, it was always below 3 in 2000. So the disrespect for police is growing and growing and growing. And it's resulting in police officers being attacked, maximum attack to minor attacks, but attacks. And among other things, it demonstrates the fact that we don't have a rule of law in New York. And that is thanks to Adams and particularly Hochul. Adams tries, but not well enough. New York is fighting really, really hard to restore the mask law, which we used to have and I utilized. It goes back to the Ku Klux Klan. It was lifted out of an abundance of being nice to criminals like Cuomo and all those people did in 2019. So hopefully that is going to be changed, and people are going to have to show who the hell they are when they're supporting terrorist groups and advocating for the killing of people. So the reality is that the Trump administration seems to have gotten more done out of office than 4 years of the Biden administration, at least with regard to immigration. He's got Canada and Mexico doing what we want. Instead of the big influx of people, I don't think it's happening because neither country wants it to happen. It's not due to us. It's due to Mexico and Canada. Now, a lot of it is due to Mexico and Canada, even under the best of circumstances. So this is a heck of a start, a really, really heck of a start. There was a great idea today, or rather on Saturday, from two people. I don't know them, but I think it's a great idea. Christopher Kopman and Josh T. Smith, who lead energy policy at the nonprofit Abundance Institute. Basically, to make it very simple, what they're saying is that in order to compete and dominate in the artificial intelligence era, I'm not even talking about the electric car now, which I think is gone, really. Sorry, Elon. But in the artificial intelligence era, we're going to need orders of magnitude greater than the energy we presently have. And we've got enormous amounts of energy that we haven't tapped in America. But, we're going to have to start getting it up and out. And there are so many review processes for land. It takes years to do that. What they are saying is we should put aside government land, call them American abundance zones, and therefore you can fast track whatever has to be done to produce what's needed to support the new technologies like modular nuclear reactors, which would be the smaller, safer nuclear reactors that could take up a lot of our energy needs a lot more efficiently and a lot cheaper. These are the nuclear reactors that they use in Europe and they use in China, actually. And rather than the big, gigantic nuclear reactor, which, if God forbid something happens, really frightens people. Although we've never lost a human life to nuclear power in America. but these are especially safe. Also, just the regular development of oil and natural gas, there is quite a bit of very learned thinking that below the level of shale that we have now, like well below, just like we found oil and natural gas way down into the earth. If we go much further down, we're going to find even more. But the problem is, you got to, I mean, the technology of doing that takes a while, but that's nothing in comparison to all the ridiculous processes that have to be gone through, which can be shortened, not done away with completely, but made logical and shortened if they're done in these abundance zones, which are government property. And government can make up the rules for it or vary them more. I think the revelation of the COVID con was amazing news this week. We all know it. It's almost as if they're preaching to the converted, which is that that the Chinese virus came right out of Wuhan, right out of that laboratory. I mean, I think maybe I figured that out the first week. Dr. Maria figured it out before it happened. And we covered it on our show, Ask the Mayor, and occasionally we're booted off YouTube for it. The real problem is a bunch of criminals covered that up, and it cost human lives. It cost human lives to do that, and it cost human lives to cover up treatments so that they could get an exception, so that they could basically give us a non-vaccine, a vaccine falsely described as a vaccine. Vaccines prevent diseases. Medications treat diseases. The vaccine immediately yielded the result that you got COVID anyway. The argument made by the liars and the criminals and the crooks that we're making trillions from the vaccine. Well, at least it'll make the COVID less, which would make it a medicine. Problem is, it didn't make it less. You know how many times the first stepmother has had COVID? I mean, she's had about 45 injections of all different kinds. I mean, sometimes you see the little holes in the face from it. I mean, she gets COVID, it seems like every 3 weeks. Right? Which is why she could never put out a Christmas stocking for little Navy. I wonder if they have finally met with their granddaughter. We have an awful, horribly evil group of people in the White House. Get the book.
I get the book. Where's the book? Oh, we took it off the tree.
Everybody is stealing my. No, people are stealing it.
Oh,
People
who's
are
taking the
coming in and
books?
stealing the book.
Who's taking the books?
I don't know.
But why would they do that without asking to get it signed?
That
That would be
they may have
interesting.
signed those books. I don't know.
I do think there's a stack in there, if I remember correctly. I do remember stacking them somewhere. We're not accusing all of our audience members of being thieves, just some of them.
Well, I hope everyone has a very nice day tomorrow.
It's our last show of the year.
I
tomorrow.
hope that all of you get a little rest so you can stay up late. We're going to be on our usual time. We'll have a little special New Year's message. Really would be silly to do the top story of the year, since
We know.
unless you've been living on the Arctic Circle, above Greenland, the top story of the year is that Trump got elected.
But we got to do a top 10. We do. And I'll between now and tomorrow night,
You and I tonight
We have
will do it
tomorrow. Yeah. That's worth doing. We know the number 1
Okay.
and number 2 and number 3. I mean, the assassination, right?
And then we'll talk a little football.
And then we'll talk
Make
some
it a little
football.
lighter tomorrow night.
That's right.
It is New Year's.
Yes.
All right.
So tune in 8 p.m. We're not
Got
going
a
anywhere. We'll
lot
be
of
here.
Football coming up on New Year's Day. I'm looking forward to
Col-
Notre Dame. George?
Yes, that's a big one. And Ohio State, Oregon's a big one. And then you got a couple other games that, because of the seeding, kind of got a little whacked out.
You got a little disappointed with your Green Bay Packers, huh?
Packers, a furious comeback last night. They almost completed it. And thinking back to it, Mayor, we should have kicked the onside kick at the end. I'm sorry, a lot of you probably didn't watch this game. It was highly rated game, Packers Vikings. We should have kicked onside at the end instead of kicking it deep and trying to stop them, because at that point, no matter what,
I was going over the odds of that.
Yeah.
And I think they made, I hate to say this, I think your coach made the right decision. You got about a 20% chance of getting an onside kick. You got about a 40% chance of stopping it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But no matter what, you have to stop them. Even if you do the onside kick and you don't get the onside kick, my thought is you still can't let them get a first down.
The onside kick is usually when they're really waiting for it.
Yeah.
Useless.
But no matter what, you got to stop them. So even if you do that, 20% is better than 0%. And even if you don't get the onside kick,
onside kick gives them almost another field.
That's fine. They were up, what, 2 points?
And no time.
So I see what you're saying. So they get the field goal, then we get the ball back. We got to score a touchdown. But at least we get the ball back. The alternative,
maybe.
Or you stop them. Like either way, you couldn't give them a first down, right? Whether you kick it deep or not. Right. So they don't get our opponent gets the onside kick. We got to stop them anyway, and maybe they kick a field goal. Anyway, unfortunately, I don't know if everybody saw your Giants.
It didn't work out, but I thought you made the right decision.
And the New York Giants, who had the 1 seed, they had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. They end up winning.
New York Giant fans are now unhappy that they won.
Yeah.
Because they lost, to
the Patriots.
They wanted. Well,
all right.
We'll talk a little sports tomorrow night, and we'll also talk about this big changing world that we have, and let you know the things that they keep away from you on all those crooked media outlets that surround us that are going to have to change. I see some breaks there too. We should cover that a little bit too. They're starting to crack. And we're starting to grow. I don't mean us, just us. I mean, people like us. We're becoming possibly the single biggest way people get their information now. So let's see. And we will be, certainly, in a very short time. So God bless the people of Israel and the people of Ukraine who are going through so much. The people of Iran who may have a chance this upcoming new year. And of course, to the people of the United States, we should thank God for blessing us, which he has. God bless America. See you tomorrow.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply